everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to do something very simple, but something I will probably ramble about. We're going to talk about what I actually use to do realism drawings. This in the background is just a work in progress. But yeah, so we're going to talk about papers, pencils, powders, all the other little tool things that I use to create my drawings, and which also you will see me use in tutorials. So this is basically just a little talk through why I use it. With everything but the pencils, I've only used one brand, so I can only speak about the brand. But the pencils, I've got three. So I will be kind of explaining the differences between the two and why I prefer one over the other. That can be a whole separate video in itself, but I can either talk a lot or very little about it. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So to kick things off, I'm gonna start with the tool I deem the most important. The one you have to pick based on the way you draw, the way maybe if you paint or whatever medium you use. I think it depends on your style and your methods for creating your drawing, and that is the paper. So I use Fabriano drawing paper. This is the 160 GM, and I've got it in A4, A3, A5, and then also these big large sheets that I've got, they are also in the Fabriano drawing paper academia range. Also the same weight. I kind of struck gold. I used like a cheaper, more student type paper for the first drawings that I did. It was fine. The grain was just too much, so I did not like it at all. Switched to these journals and absolutely never looked back. It takes a lot of layers. It blends, the pencil blends and works beautifully on top of it. I really do enjoy it. I find the sheets, I think sometimes I take the one that's 200 GSM, the weight of the paper, but I prefer the 160. The Fabriano's paper range, I've heard fantastic things about it. People that do color pencils and pastels also use it. So it works extremely well. The paper is the one thing, like I said, it's probably gonna take some time to figure out what you like. I don't know how people work on smoother paper, but that obviously works for their style and method of drawing. So you might have all the right tools, great pencils or paint, but if obviously what you're working on is not benefiting your style or it's working against you, then obviously you've got the wrong thing for what you're up to and what your end goal is. So the paper, most important. If you have to splurge on it, I think it's the one thing that you can spend the money on. The rest is all basic tools you don't need, and generally they're not that expensive. Graphite is probably the least expensive of all the pencil mediums. So pastels gets up there, colored pencils get up there, but graphite, simple, easy, cheap. Splurge on your paper. Find the right one. Because I layer a lot, this works beautifully. So let's move on. I'll talk about the pencils last because there's a bunch of stuff that I want to say about it. So let's move on to blending tools. So I've got blending stumps and then brushes. These are just synthetic makeup brushes that I've repurposed for drawing. This one I cut short just to have a denser, more compact brush. This I use for blending mostly powders and in between layers. It gives this nice soft wash. I akin it to a glaze in painting. Probably not the right word, but it's the feeling I get. The main purpose I use the brushes for is for my trusty friend. I don't know how I lived without it in the first few years of drawing. It's graphite powder. Very useful for covering large surfaces, for giving a soft feel. It's just I can't draw without it anymore. These beginning layers that you see is mostly graphite powder blending and very soft pencil layers. With these, for these smaller details, I don't necessarily use a brush for blending. It's mostly just to cover the surface. Then for the kind of more precise blending, I will use a blending stump. Now these come in various sizes, and obviously they get very dirty. I just buy new ones. I've seen someone on Instagram kind of shave them down to create a clean point again. Don't know if I want to try that. Maybe. I just have a bunch of them lying around. They're very useful for having more of a, if you want more of a concentrated application of your powder, the blending stumps is fantastic. Even the dirty ones, if you don't put powder on it and you just want to blend an area or blend a line, it's great. It's just great. With pencil, graphite pencil, because it blends so nicely, it's just a tool that's kind of a given that you just need to automatically add to your arsenal. Basically, just add it to your toolkit. The brushes goes with the powder. It won't do any difference to blending just pencil on paper unless it's dirty. These brushes have got powder, I think already. It's part of the brushes now because I've used it so much. So I can blend softly in certain areas with the brushes and you'll kind of see a difference. I usually begin my drawings with a layer of powder. I prefer to work off of just a slight grey tint to the paper. So yeah, these are just this, buy with your pencils. This, if you want to play around with a different way of doing things, having a soft, I think if you're doing very soft backgrounds, powder is kind of a must. And it's very quick. It makes those initial applications of just grey so much better. It's quick, easy, it's simple to use. It can be messy, but if you use it more precisely and actually tap off the excess, it's fantastic. The softer bristles will obviously spread it out a lot better. It won't create like a little splotch where you add it. That's why I prefer first layer with the brushes, just for an even application. The blending stumps can, if you're not careful, leave like little lines or marks that you need to go over and blend again. So yeah, those are the blending things and the powder. So let's talk about erasing, which I initially... No, I need to find my round one. It's around here somewhere. Like, I keep losing it. But anyways, I've got... Oh, yeah, it is. So these are the Tombow mono erasers. They're quite new to my toolkit. I initially only used the Kneaded Eraser and just the normal erasers that you buy from the store. Those very hard ones, and then I'll shave them off into finer points for better detail. So I've got the round tip and the rectangle, I think. So I know the rectangle is 2.5. The round one I have no idea because it's rubbed off. I think it's 2.8. And obviously you get refills for both, and this is a relatively cheap tool to add. it's almost in the same sense as the blending stumps. If you buy your pencils, just buy something along this lines, eraser that you can kind of make into a sharp point and use for all these little small details. I really do enjoy them. To sharpen and clean them, I just use these sandpaper stuff. I don't know if you probably get them everywhere in your art store. I think it's actually supposed to be used for charcoal and pastel, but I use it to clean my erasers. And if you've got a battery eraser, which I don't use, I have one, but I don't use it, can also use it to sharpen up that into a fine point. So with the rectangle one, I kind of get it to almost a spearhead flat tip, and the round one is just like a conical shape. Very useful. It's with my layering technique, they work all the way up to your darker, more intense details. When you've got a lot of pencil already on the paper, it works very well. Obviously with the larger one, you can take away a lot more because it's just got bigger surface area and you can apply more pressure. So these is a staple in my mind. Buy them with your pencil. They're not expensive. They're easy to find. Tombow is a well-recognized stationery brand. Their the pens and stuff is also very, very nice. And this is just, you find it everywhere. The Kneaded Eraser, I use it for larger, softer erasing, not necessarily for precise erasing. I play with it more than I actually use it. Very useful. It works when you have a softer style. I think if you have a lot softer style with your realism or any type of drawing, very useful. I like it. It works, especially in these initial layers. If you maybe want to just barely take off some of the pencil, the powder, it works very well to give that slight soft difference in value, and then you can just go over a brush to blend around the edge and you'll get a nice effect. I like if I'm doing portraits with the Labrador, if you saw the Labrador, it kind of ends smoothly and fades. Very useful tool for that type of thing. So the Kneaded Eraser, it's not a general thing that I always use. I keep it around because it does work in some instances and it does pop up in all of my drawings. So for initial layers, sometimes I want to take out, I think I did that with the Labrador, initial layers when I want to kind of create the flow of the fur and the direction and like a more larger area of kind of highlight, I'll use this. So yeah, that is the blending, the erasing and the paper. So let's move on to the pencils. Now I have 3 brands here. Let me just get 1, 2, 3. So these 2 are probably the more recognizable, the Staedtler Mars Lumograph and the Faber-Castell 9000s. Now I initially first picked up the Cretacolor's Fine Art pencils. I have used it ever since. I've now been drawing the way I've been drawing since 2013, which is a while. It's 11 years. Then came the Faber-Castells, and then recently, I think 3 months ago, I picked up the Staedtler Mars Lumographs. Just, curiosity's sake. These 2 are very similar in my mind. They, especially the higher B range, they work very, very similarly. There's some very slight differences in the lower B range and the H range, but it's kind of negligible. So in my mind, these 2 are kind of similar. This one behaves differently than both these. The B range runs blacker and darker, which I do like. It's nice to have the option to have that really black tone. But the H range and the lower B range, like the HB, 2B, 3B, it starts to get better. It doesn't work as well for my way of drawing as these two. So if I had to rank them, let's just start off and rank them. I prefer the Cretacolors, which I've used for 13 years, then the Staedtlers, and then the Faber-Castells. Now, this is also personal preference to everybody. Everyone wants to know the pencils in particular that one uses, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for your style or kind of make your life easier. So the Cretacolors all around, it works very well. The only thing I think people might have a gripe with is their B range. The higher the B goes, the softer the pencil gets, and it gets this silver kind of grey sheen. It looks almost velvety in texture. Some people won't like that. They'll want the darker black you get from the Faber-Castells, which is totally fine. I think that's kind of where you want to mix it. But the way I work with layering, these pencils layer on top of each other, no problem. The H ranges layer on top of B ranges layer on top of H ranges. I find that with the Faber-Castells, when you've got, say, a decent layer of H pencils on the paper, the B range won't really work fantastically over it, so you do need a softer approach. Some people might find something else won't have that problem, but for me I like to layer all my ranges across one another, so I don't just work up H range to B. I layer H over B and B over H, which is the natural one. So the Cretacolors in my mind works perfectly for my style of drawing. And yeah, I've learned to love the shiny silver effect of the B range. But I have, as I've kind of matured as an artist, that really, really dark kind of shadows, I rarely work with that. To me, it's more of a soft, I don't work in that very highly contrasted drawings. So like I said, the Staedtler mask Lumographs is very similar to the Cretacolors. Performs the same. It layers on top of each other very nicely. I bought it kind of I like skipped a range. So I picked pencils in the lower, so I have to have an F pencil and an HB. And then I kind of just jumped to 2B, 4B, 6B, 9B. Yeah. And I think I also bought a 2H. So that's kind of how I worked it in. You don't need the full range, but I do quite like having every pencil around because I do use every pencil at some point. So, but if you want to start out, kind of the F pencil I really like using to start kind of the drawing process. Either that or a 2H, which I find those two pencils in your H range to me is a must. Then obviously your standard HB, which I use to grid up, obviously not a sharp point. And then I just skip a range. So you kind of want your top range pencil in the set. So this goes to 9B, I think. There might be higher ones. And then a 2H I view as my bottom. Anything, I've got a 4H and I had a 7H around here somewhere. Those pencils I don't really use. So you just kind of need the 2H to 9B range, and then you can kind of just skip around and pick one. So this one will always stay in the kit. The Cretacolors, I will always repurchase them every single time. I'll probably complete the set of the Staedtlers and phase out the Faber-Castells. I think these two are similar in price range, and this one is the slightly cheaper version. But yeah, so love works fantastic. It really does. The Faber-Castell's works really good. And some people use only this. But for me, I prefer these two. And I think this one is the lesser known of the three brands. So yeah, let me see what else. And then kind of the standard things, like I use tracing paper just to protect the surface I'm drawing on, but that doesn't really aid my realism. It just keeps me clean, my hands that is, and the surface relatively clean. So yeah, that's the quick and kind of short-ish of it, of what I use. Not necessarily how I use them, because that can be a whole long spiel. I think that's a lot better said in a tutorial, which I have a bunch of them already, where you can kind of see all these tools in action and my methods, which I think would make another good video. But yeah, that's that. So paper is very important. I think the blending stumps and the Tombow mono erasers are, I won't say a must, but definitely a standard beginner toolkit. Something similar to the Tombows if you can't find them, or just do like I did in the beginning and shave down the hard erasers. Everything else will depend on your style. The paper will depend on your methods. So you kind of have to play around. But this, if you do it like I do, lots and lots of layers, perfect for that. And you've obviously got the bound journals, which is travel friendly if you like to take your stuff along with you. And their sketchbooks are very nice, I have to say. The Fabriano sketchbooks are worth it. Magic, can't do anything without it. My style depends on this magical powder, and obviously the brushes go with it. So yeah, that's that. I hope you all found this somewhat fun and that it made sense. And then I'll see you for the next video. Cheers everyone.